A big I-team investigation exposed Milwaukee's policy when it comes to parking tickets. Write the tickets first and take care of mistakes later.
Well, now we are learning why parking checkers have to follow that order. Steve Chamraz is here to tell us what he's uncovered. Steve.
Mike and Carol, the people in charge of parking tickets are very careful in avoiding the word quota. But both current and former parking checkers say the bosses expect a certain number of tickets from each of them, which is why checkers sometimes write tickets the city eventually has to throw out.
For more than 2 decades, Ed Fleury was the guy you loved to hate.
They would expect about, I don't know, 50 to 70 tickets from you.
Fleury spent 24 years writing parking tickets for the city of Milwaukee. He retired in 2009 after he could no longer stand pressure from above to constantly write more tickets.
When you're constantly barraged like that, it's like beating a dog.
Fleury tells the I-team supervisors expected a certain number of tickets written by each checker each day. In other words, a quota.
Is there a quota?
No, there is no quota.
When we sat down with Parking Department Supervisor Tom Sanders in May, he insisted ticket quotas were just a myth.
We do not have a quota. We do not have a performance standards whatsoever.
According to Ed Fleury and 3 current Milwaukee parking checkers, the pressure to hit a quota is very real.
The focus became more and more on production and numbers than it did on anything else.
According to Fleury, pressure and fear of punishment are big reasons why parking checkers sometimes write tickets that are wrong.
You're going to do it as quick as you can and move on to the next. And if there's mistakes made, a lot of times they would have the attitude, well, let the person take care of it, and if they don't, well, we made some extra money.
To understand why Milwaukee would even consider a ticket quota, you need to know a little history. Around the year 2000, the city shifted parking checking from the police department to the Department of Public Works. When police had the job, Milwaukee made a good bit of money off of fines. In 1995, that number was a shade over $9.2 million. Under Public Works, though, the numbers have exploded. By 2010, the amount of fine revenue nearly tripled to $25 million.
I think the original intent had very little to do with revenue.
Mike D'Amato was an alderman during this period. Originally, he thought the shift to Public Works was a good idea. But in 2003, D'Amato became convinced DPW had a quota.
They were trying to reach a number, a dollar amount, rather than a balance in the neighborhood.
So a handful of aldermen responded with this resolution, saying Milwaukee was, quote, gaining a reputation as overly aggressive in its parking enforcement. Efforts merely aimed at generating additional revenue.
You begin to get used to it, and the elimination of that revenue creates a hole in your budget, and so it's a bit difficult to turn around after that.
As the numbers get bigger, it's easy to see why. Add up all the years since 2000, and parking fines have made Milwaukee $255 million. That's right, more than $250 million in parking tickets.
It's very apparent when you talk in numbers like that.
Current Alderman Bob Donovan says this pressure to write more tickets is just another burden on taxpayers. And it's a pressure renewed annually when Public Works puts a number in the city budget projecting how much parking ticket money it expects to make in the coming year.
They've got it down to a science, without a doubt, and they're pretty confident that they can generate it, and they'll know 3 or 4 months into the year whether they're on target, or so they monitor it very closely.
If that's not a quota, Ed Fleury doesn't know what is.
They would constantly tell you it's not about money, but the bottom line was you got lectured every day about producing more tickets and bringing in more revenue.
Even if there's a chance, some of those tickets will eventually be dismissed because the parking checker got him wrong.
And Milwaukee dismissed about $1 million worth of parking tickets last year. If people had not challenged those tickets, that would have been another $1 million in the city's bank account. And so, you know, we did email a number of questions to Public Works last week, hoping somebody would sit down with us for an interview. We got no response.
City makes a lot of money, but gives a lot of headaches.
Yes,
okay,
they do.
Thank you, Steve.